Hello, everybody. Welcome. Let's get started right away. Tesla is up 4% today. Overall markets are Dow Jones up 0.5, Nasdaq up 0.9, S&P 500 up 0.6%, Russell 2000 up 0.7%. The biggest contributors today are Tesla and Nvidia, and Broadcom is down 2%, and everything else is mixed. Let's read some of these headlines that are coming out from Trump's press briefing. Trump says don't expect any exemptions or waivers. Expects a lot of countries' tariffs to stay the same. EU doesn't treat the US right on trade, Trump says. Canada doesn't have enough military protection. Canada has been tough on military, not paying enough. Trump says airlines ask him to help with EU fees. Trump says EU has 20% value added tax, also have other measures that hurt US companies, including Apple. Well, I mean, it hurts their domestic countries too. That's just kind of how they tax people. Trump says tariffs on autos coming soon, stacked over reciprocal. Prices may go up in the short term. U.S. judge extends pause on Trump administration plan to put USAID workers on leave until February 21. Trump says interest rates are going to be going down. He expects jobs to go up, prices to go up somewhat short term. Trump said ask if consumers can expect higher prices, says not necessarily. Trump says India has more tariffs than nearly any other country. Trump signs order on U.S. reciprocal tariffs. Trump says car tariffs coming soon. Trump says this will be over and above steel tariffs, also cars and pharmaceuticals. These are all headlines from the last 10 minutes. Let's see what else. Trump says we'll consider countries that use a value-added tax system as tariff. No tariffs if products are manufactured or built in the U.S. Okay. More headlines from Trump. War in Ukraine has to end. Ukraine would have a seat at the table in any peace negotiation along with Russia. Okay. While that continues, let's read one of the articles here. So Reuters article says Wall Street advances after mixed data eases inflation spike fears. Wall Street's main indices advanced on Thursday after the latest producer prices data led to a lowering of inflation forecasts, while the prospect of Russia-Ukraine peace talks prompted some risk-taking among investors. U.S. producer prices increased solidly in January, offering more evidence that inflation was picking up again and strengthening the market's view that the Fed would not be cutting interest rates before the second half of 2025. However, economists estimated that the core PCE price index rose 0.3% in January after adding 0.2% in December, much lower than the 0.5% gain some had forecasted following the CPI data. The PPI report was hot, but probably lifted by temporary factors and residual seasonality, said Bill Adams, chief economist at Commercia Bank. I think that's an optimistic interpretation of what happened, but we'll see. It also saw flat or negative readings on most type of healthcare services, which points to a cooler core PCE inflation report for January than the month's core CPI. Portfolio management fees, healthcare, and airline fares are among components that go into calculation of the core personal consumption expenditures price index, which will be released later this month. Traders currently pricing a solitary 25 basis point rate cut from the central bank this year, although the Fed is not expected to make a move until September, according to CME's FedWatch tool. A January consumer price index reading on Wednesday showed the highest increase in prices in nearly a year and a half. Fed Chair Powell said on Wednesday, his second day of testimony to Congress, that the CPI data was further evidence the central bank's battle with rising prices was not finished. The number of Americans filing for new applications for unemployment benefits decreased last week, another report showed. Meanwhile, Trump said the Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky had expressed a desire for peace in separate phone conversations with him on Wednesday. He also posted on the social media platform that he would detail the latest in a barrage of tariffs on imports into the U.S. that he has unveiled since taking office in a press conference at 1 p.m. Most mega cap and growth stocks swung higher. 10 of the 11 S&P sectors traded higher. MGM Resorts jumped 15.6% after a casino operator beat fourth quarter profit and revenue estimates. All right. And that's it on general markets. Let's next read Musk's Doge cuts. This is a Reuters article from yesterday. I've been wondering how much Doge is actually cutting as opposed to the headlines and the tweets, etc. What the numbers really are. So let's talk about that for a second. It's a Reuters article from yesterday. The first phase of the rapid fire effort by Tesla CEO Elon Musk and President Trump to cut waste from government agencies appears driven more by an ideological assault on federal agencies, long hated by conservatives, than a good faith effort to save taxpayer dollars, according to two veteran Republican budget experts. Since Trump's inauguration on January 20, Musk has dispatched members of his Department of Government Efficiency to scrutinize sensitive personnel and payment information in government computer systems and led a successful drive to dismantle two agencies, one that provides a lifeline to the world's needy and another that protects Americans from unscrupulous lenders. But Douglas Holtz-Eakin, a former Republican director of the Congressional Budget Office, said the agencies Musk and Trump have targeted to date account for a tiny fraction of the overall federal budget, which is projected to reach $7 trillion this fiscal year, according to the CBO. They are not going to go into agencies that are doing things they like. They're going into agencies they disagree with, Holtz-Eakin, who has participated in the PAC's tax and spending negotiations in Congress, told Reuters. Trump, a Republican, says he is very proud of what he describes as a vital initiative to turn off the spigot of wasteful spending. With Musk standing behind him in the Oval Office, Trump signed an executive order on Tuesday, broadening Doge's remit, telling government agencies to work with Doge to cut staff and limit hiring. Speaking to reporters, Musk responded to critics who say he is an unelected official who has been granted unprecedented authority by the president to dismantle parts of the U.S. government. You can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that's responsive to the people, Musk said. He pledged to find $1 trillion in savings through his efforts to identify fraud and waste in the government. An online Doge laugh tracker claimed on Tuesday that the department has saved taxpayers 37 billion, 0.69 billion since it began work on January 20th, but did not provide evidence of how that figure was reached. Of the 15 agencies Musk's team have targeted so far, 9 were singled out for elimination and downsizing in Project 2025, a controversial 900-page blueprint compiled by conservative think tanks to remake the U.S. government. The document claims many federal government agencies have been taken over by a left-wing elite who use taxpayer dollars to push a liberal agenda that is weaponized against the conservative values. Trump distanced himself from the project during the 2024 election after an uproar over some of its more far-reaching proposals, but a number of the authors are now in his administration. Bill Hoagland, a former Republican staffer and director of the Senate Budget Committee for more than 20 years, said the cost-cutting efforts so far have been designed to play to Trump's base and have been low-hanging fruit for ideological reasons. The playbook has not been the dollar savings, but more for the philosophical and ideological differences conservatives have the work these agencies do. There's little disagreement in Washington on the need to cut waste and fraud and make the US government more efficient. The complaint by federal workers and Democratic lawmakers is the blunt force approach favored by Musk has upended the lives of thousands of public servants overnight. Musk's team have taken over or sent Doge workers in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA), charged with providing weather forecasting and climate data. The Department of Education, whose mandate includes prohibiting discrimination in schools and colleges, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which protects consumers from exploitative lenders, and U.S. Agency for International Development (USAID), the government main foreign aid organization, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency (FEMA), which responds to natural disasters. Many Republicans have long seen these agencies as pushing liberal agendas that are harmful to U.S. interests. Together, they constitute a fraction of the federal spending. USA disbursed about $72 billion in aid in fiscal year 2022, according to government figures, or 1% of total federal outlays. Elon Musk speaks next to U.S. Conservatives have talked about closing the education department since Republican Ronald Reagan was president in the 80s, in the belief that the federal government has no business in being involved in schools and universities. More recently, Trump and his allies have accused the department of foisting woke policies such as advocating for transgender players on girls' sports teams. NOAA has been widely criticized by Republicans for what they say is an exaggeration of climate change threats, while USAID is accused of sending billions of dollars in aid each year to some countries not seen as American allies. Republicans have also railed against the CFPB since its creation in the wake of the 2008 financial crash, declaring it an example of liberal overreach. Last week, as Musk staff entered the agency, he posted CFPB RIP on his ex social media account, and on Monday, staff were sent home and the agency was shuttered. Firings of some probationary staff began Tuesday night, according to a recipient of the termination letter and people familiar with the matter. Stephen Moore, a former economic advisor to Trump who welcomes Doge's efforts, said he opposes spending taxpayer dollars on government bureaucrats pushing liberal policy agendas. If you walk down the halls of USAID or the Department of Education, you're not going to find any conservatives, Moore said. It's really important that defund the left. Musk, Doge, and the White House did not respond to requests for comment for this story. Meta, how are you?
Good. So I was just listening to what you were reading. I didn't catch fully what you were reading there.
This is a Reuters article titled Musk's Doge Cuts Based More on Political Ideology Than Real Cost Savings So Far. And the summary of the article is Doge has focused on cutting waste from government agencies disliked by conservatives rather than major budget contributors. While claiming $37 billion in savings, Doge's efforts have targeted agencies mentioned in a conservative blueprint, prioritizing ideological alignment over substantial cost savings. The real test for Musk and Trump will be tackling major drivers of government spending like Social Security and Medicare, which are politically treacherous. So that's that.
That's fair.
And then,
I think that's
I read an
oh,
article on markets. Um, um, there's not much there. I think Trump has a press conference going on, and I read some of the headlines on that. Nothing new really here. What's new with you?
uh well, looking forward to the paper, but I would love to speak to the Doge thing. I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
what's new with me is here's the title, I guess. What's new with me is I'm very excited about the AI compression space. Um, I think I have done enough internal processing to figure out what I'm comfortable talking about publicly versus not, and based on public papers and things like that. So I think that's kind of like where I'm very excited to like talk about DeepSeek and Llama and the approaches that are being taken. I think more and more in the timeline, I am noticing some divisions. So I'm hoping to like maybe bring everybody to remind people like we're all great. Everybody should love each other. And the last thing is this political stuff. I see it is dividing the Tesla community a little bit, and it's unfortunate, I think, to see how it is dividing the community. especially because, one of the things I liked about the community was I thought like a lot of people are coming at it from first principles, and even in like the article you read, there's a lot of like bias. When you know a topic very well and you see it covered, it's very easy to see where the bias is. When you don't know a topic very well and you see it covered, I tend to at least believe that they're trying hard to cover things. Unfortunately, this is making me trust a lot of the press less. Forbes has done a great job, but I think a lot of other press articles have just been off base a lot. Like, as an example, the article you just read, what is not political? Of course, you're going to do things that you want to do, not things you don't want to do first. They haven't been in office that long, and they've already talked about how they're going to go into the military budget. And they've also done a very simple thing, like require a index on the Social Security ID. Like there should only be one entry in the database for every Social Security number. That's not controversial, in my opinion. So like a lot of the technological stuff Elon is doing, and I think I go back to like the Vivek and Elon discussion about how one wanted to do it more the legal route, the other one wants to do it more a technological route. I think I kind of like the technological route.
I mean, I don't care for the political drama. The only reason why I'm reading this stuff is because, as I suspect, the tweets and the cuts, like the actual cuts to spending, are very little and they're minute. There's a lot of drama, and I'm trying to see what are the actual cuts so far and the likely cuts in the future, so that I can predict inflation, interest rates, stock prices, etc. That's the only reason I'm reading. And
That's fair.
so that's what I suspected. And in my experience, Reuters has actually been accurate over the things they say. Whenever
Doge
Reuters,
or press?
Reuters, whenever Musk disagrees with Reuters, Reuters' story has been correct.
I
And that's been
agree
my experience.
to some
So,
degree, yeah. But in that article you just read, the Social Security claim is not accurate, right?
what was the claim?
They claim that they're afraid to go into things that would be politically treacherous, like Social Security. Yet they've already gone into that space.
I think they said, I don't think they said they're afraid of it. They said the real test will be what they do about those major items. I mean, they haven't cut anything in Social Security.
Didn't they say that they were deduping the database? So in theory, that would be a cut, right? Because certain people would stop getting checks because each number will only get one check.
We shall see. So, how much is that amount to?
Probably not a lot, but my suspicion is so I'm obviously biased. I'm gonna put that out there. I
Why?
like Elon, so there's a bias, right?
Because you like Elon? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's
Okay.
a bias there, right? And as an engineer, I probably am more optimistic about technology side of things. I've heard some fears like, oh, what if they break the thing? That's so silly. Like people who built FSD and like software today can manage a 50-year-old database, um, no matter what language it's built in, probably Fortran. But the idea that the database should require you to fill out certain fields so that you can pass audits is not controversial to me. And the reason why I'm excited about that approach is it applies to the Pentagon as much as it applies to the education department, right? So like Democrats want to cut from the Pentagon and from the military budget, Republicans want to cut from other departments. They all go into the treasury. So it's kind of exciting to see someone say, hey, let's find the place where all the spending comes from. Let's see if that thing can be made such that everybody can pass audits now. And then let's maybe discuss which department's spending based on the category, or maybe by category, has to be publicly disclosed, which allows even more like transparency and auditing. And you can see that would be the equivalent of what people say we need a blockchain for. And I suspect Elon doesn't really want to do a blockchain because it's a stupid engineering implementation. And you could just open up a subset view of that table of that database.
Okay. I mean, I'm not really that interested. The only thing I care about is how much they actually cut. And as I suspected, it's nothing. And it's unlikely to change. I
They
think
haven't been to that long yet, so I don't agree. I think these
he
things
already
are like
walked
an
back
S
his
curve.
$2 trillion goal.
I think he's saying 1 trillion for the year, right? So you
I
you
don't think
build up
so.
to it.
I think it's $1 trillion over many years, and that's not going to happen either.
I think he was saying he wants to get to a place where we're on pace for 1 trillion by the end of the year.
Okay. There are other things I want to ask you about, more important things. We can speculate
Sure,
endlessly.
that
But
sounds good.
um, BYD is so actually let me ask about things that you know more about. So the top at the top, Baidu's Apollo Go operates in 11 cities in China, has provided 10 million rides, and its insurance claims rate is 1/14 of human drivers. This is according to Autoline podcast today. Did you know this?
Did I notice that BYD has a lower
Baidu, not
accident?
BYD.
Oh, sorry.
Baidu operates in 11 cities in China, has provided 10, basically like, this is basically like Waymo.
Yeah. I did not notice. I did not know this.
Yeah. And FSD is not even allowed in China. Now, Waymo said they're working on a sixth generation vehicle or driver that will reduce the hardware costs. They've now in a handful of cities. They're gonna get to a dozen cities in no time,
Yes.
and they're gonna have tens of thousands of cars in a year or two. So, does this lower your confidence that Tesla robotaxis will generate billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars in net income in the future?
I never thought, and in the spaces I've been consistent, I never thought this was a single player market. So I think for that reason, it doesn't necessarily lower my confidence that much. I only ever thought, I think there will be like two or three dominant market participants. And so I think you get to 30% roughly. I think most likely in America, that's Waymo, Tesla, and Uber, some kind of human force.
What about Zooks?
Maybe Zooks, okay. But I don't know. Like, I think either Tesla or Waymo, maybe there's a market for three, but I think people generally go to two brands and then the third entrant kind of has a hard time getting in. Maybe
When
they
do
go
you
through,
think?
wait, they may go through Uber. It could be Zooks goes through
When do
Uber.
you think Tesla will have 10,000 robotaxis on U.S. roads?
I've been wrong about this time and time again, so I don't know. I would say by the end of this year, because
Okay.
if they do enable it in one city, that would meet the requirement, right? They could move 10,000 cars in that one city.
Okay. You think they can do 10,000 cars in Austin?
I think we did the math on this before. I thought every major city is about 50,000 taxis.
Yeah, but you said there's most of Waymo is already there.
Yeah, so
Uber's
if they got
already there in
20% market
Houston.
share, then there would be 10,000.
When do you think that's going to happen?
I don't think it's a long time between when they enable it and when they get to 10,000, maybe 3 to 6 months. You need a really large number of cars if you're going to make your own network. And
Tesla
since
has never produced 10,000 cars in 3 to 6 months.
it wouldn't be from them, are you talking about the robotaxi specific car, or are you saying like customer cars that are converted into robotaxis?
I thought we were on the same page that customer cars won't be converted.
No, I'm not on the same page.
Okay, well, maybe machine can't come up here. Um, okay,
There's more than 10,000 cars with hardware for, right? So
I
even
don't
that.
think Hardware 4 is going to make it. I don't know. I'm doubtful that Hardware 5 is going to make it, honestly.
Have you driven in the cars lately?
Yeah, yes. Hardware 4, V13.
It doesn't do well in Austin?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. I mean, I know, like, the first test is going to be Uber drivers using FSD. And I never met a single Uber driver who uses FSD.
Why would
And
an Uber driver
they
use
drive
FSD?
3 to 5 times more miles than an average Tesla owner.
I'm going to argue that an Uber driver has less disposable income, and that's why they're doing that job. Therefore, they're more likely to say, you know what, I would rather let's say there was an escalator, and the escalator does a perfect job of taking up the stairs, but it costs you $1 to go up the escalator, or you could take the stairs. People will choose the stairs if they have
No. And
if
here's
they're
my
more
argument.
money sensitive.
Here's my argument. If FSD indeed makes it easier to drive, and an Uber driver gives just one more ride per day because of that ease, then that extra ride alone pays for the monthly fee. So I am certain that the first adopters or FSD in mass outside of biased Tesla influencers on X are going to be the Uber drivers. But
So
yeah,
counter argument, if I was doing it to break even, it doesn't make any sense. So obviously you're saying that's the minimum to break even. Second argument is, do you think the population of Uber drivers are aware of the technological location? Because in order to be aware of how good FSD is, they would have to experiment by turning it on, by either paying for it or using the trial.
yeah. I mean, there's been, I mean, in the entire year of 2024 has been free trials. So I'm sure Uber drivers have driven it, and they have a very tight knit community too, on Uber Marketplace and stuff. So they share information very rapidly. I mean, the fact is that they just don't use it.
Do we know if there's like Reddit communities of Uber drivers discussing how bad FSD
There
is?
are many communities that are wide that address tens of thousands of Uber drivers, if not hundreds of thousands of Uber drivers. Information moves fast today.
No, I agree, but I'm saying, do we have data showing that like there are Uber drivers saying Tesla FSD does not work in San Francisco or Austin?
I don't know. I don't know that. I don't think it's
That
necessary.
would be the data that would convince me that you're right, for what it's worth.
Well, the fact is they don't use it today, so you can ignore
Yeah,
that fact if you want.
I put that to the chasm, right? I know you say information moves really fast. I think information moves really fast once it gets past the chasm, but before the chasm, it does not.
They don't even buy Teslas. They don't use FSD. They buy hybrids.
Yeah, so then how are they going to know that FSD works really well?
Well, the ones that buy Teslas don't use them,
Again, I think rich people will use FSD before middle class and lower class.
and even they're not using it. Even the people who paid for it aren't using it.
I don't know if that's true.
It's
I
true.
think
Tesla shows the cumulative miles, and it's not increasing any materially.
how many miles do you think people drive per day? Because like in order to move that needle significantly, you have to increase the total number of rich people that own Teslas.
All people who own Teslas are rich.
Okay,
The average income of a Tesla owner is $150,000 today. The average age of a Tesla owner is in the 50s. White male 50s who make $150,000 is the mode of Tesla owners.
that's true for Model Y too.
True, exactly. True for Model Y as well. Stunning fact, is it? Isn't it? Isn't it a stunning fact that you did not hear from biased influencers, did you?
I mean, I think you're trying to make this more emotional than it needs to be. We can stick to the numbers.
No, I'm just sharing facts. There's
Okay,
nothing, no emotions here. These are
here-
facts.
here's two things that I want to bring up. 3,300, sorry, after 3,300 miles with 226 entries in Texas, not Austin, but in Texas, non-critical disengagement trips is 99% on the dashboard. California's at 99% too at 2,000 miles. And remember, it doesn't show decimal places. So that could be 99.99999 or 99.9. We'd have to like do the math on it. A single entry out of 92 would put you at 99, right? So the the data suggests to me that obviously we don't have enough entries overall, but we are seeing directionally certain states are outperforming other states. So
Okay.
every time we talk about does Tesla FSD work, people are not using it. You're looking at these large data sets. You have to say it would be great if we could see the mileage usage in San Francisco or in the regions that they're targeting. It sucks that Tesla doesn't release that data. You're probably right that that data sucks. That's maybe why they don't release it.
Yep.
I think this is a marketing challenge, not a people have tried it and it's not good. Because arguably, if people were trying it and it wasn't good, we would see a spike and then a drop or a flattening.
Okay. The facts are upstairs. The facts are up there. The average household income of a new Tesla owner in 2024 is $150,015, down slightly from 153,000 2018, 6 years ago. Breaking that down, Model X owners in 2024 have an average income of $162,000, a huge jump from $146,000. New Model S owners have an average of $154,000, relatively unchanged from 2018. Model Y owners have an average of $153,000. As a comparison, the real median household income in the US was $75,000. So everybody, I mean, most people who own Teslas are rich. And this is 2024, sorry. So 2 years after the price cuts, or let's say 1 year after the price cuts.
So I'm going to sound very insensitive as I say some things here. Please be forgiving here.
Uh-huh.
But let's say $153,000 after tax income, closer to, let's be generous and say $80,000. After household expenses, you're left with maybe $20,000. That's about $2,000 a month. You're asking people to spend 10% of their discretionary spending on FSD. I'm trying to say, while that might be the average income, is going to be bimodal. The really wealthy are not going to blink at the cost, and they're going to be the early adopters.
Yeah. And they have been, right? The people who buy Model S and X's and Cybertrucks mostly have FSD on their cars. But the fact is they don't use it.
Yeah, I think what you're saying,
And
like we could
that's
rephrase
more
it.
important for forecasting. The
Yes,
fact
you're
that
right.
they don't use it is more important for forecasting than anything else because it's not useful.
I think we can look at it this way. Even let's say tomorrow you had a perfect FSD and everything worked absolutely perfectly, but you couldn't use it as a money generating robotaxi, but it worked flawlessly. There might still be, and I think this is where the bulls get it wrong, there might be still a very large percentage of the population that does not buy it because it's not a product market fit. I could make the greatest banana shake smoothie maker in the world is actually the greatest banana shake smoothie there is. Doesn't mean 100% of people are going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's going to be some milestones. You're going to be able to. You have to be able to not look at the road, not pay attention to the road, so you can do other things. People want to be on their phones. And on top of that, I think Tesla's going to have to make this free for every car, like BYD is making. What do you think about that news?
I think
BYD
it's,
adding
yeah,
ADAS to all of its cars. And I'm going to share some more facts about BYD that people miss because they don't hear it from biased influencers. And this list of facts of BYD is now at the top of your screens. Myths and facts. BYD is the fourth largest global automaker, growing the fastest, has higher net income, profit margins, and free cash flow than Tesla, despite selling cars at one half the price of Tesla's. Includes self-driving technology at no additional cost on all cars, designs and manufactures its own chips, develops and produces its own batteries, sells batteries to Tesla in Europe and China, sells residential, commercial, and utility scale stationary storage, battery storage, is vertically integrated into AI research and robotics research, has been integrating humanoid robots into its manufacturing processes, and is taking market share from Tesla across the world. But its stock is valued at one-tenth the value of Tesla. What do you make of this?
I think there's a reason why Warren Buffett invested in BYD. I'm
Yeah.
not, I don't want to represent the mythical Tesla bull. I feel like you're having a discussion with someone else through me. That's not what I'm trying to have here. I agree. I think I've been saying this for a while. I don't think they're going to be the only ones. Tesla has to have the manufacturing advantage. That's the only thing that I've ever said that they had. I don't think China's a big part of the story long term if there isn't like a remediation there. Now, I do think they have really dropped the ball on the unbox method. That was the thing I was most excited about. That's the thing that they need to get done. It sucks. When I saw the Cybertruck line, I saw the stiff wire. That's the thing they've talked about since the I forget the name, the Juggernaut or whatever it was called, the fully autonomous factory they were going to make for Model 3, and it was the wiring that caused that to not work. Well, Cat 6 cables and the closed loop solves a lot of that wiring problem, and then they had stiff wiring for other things. So like at least to my knowledge, it seems like a lot of that is solved, but it feels like without the executive who needs to be present, the company is just not moving at the pace that they need to get unbox method done. It just sucks. It would be better, in my opinion, if maybe other influential VPs who actually cared were there. Maybe what he needs to do is get rid of all the executives who have already become billionaires and put other executives in place who are hungrier. I don't know what he needs to do, but he needs to shake it up a little bit. So I agree. As you know, I've been selling Tesla through a decumulator, so I get an extra amount of money through it. But that is that is real. I think that is fair. On the BYD front and the question about like what do I think, Tesla made autopilot included always. And I think that's how we go with FSD as well. I don't think it makes sense to sell vehicles without FSD. I think you bake it into the price, and if the product is good, it's great. But if it's commodity, that's just your initial differentiator. And that's why like a year or two ago I said like the clock has started, the race is on, and they're if they don't cross the finish line first, then the advantage does start to disappear.
And let alone crossing the finish line first. Are they ever going to cross the finish line?
I
At
think
this
that's where we
point,
disagree. I think they will. I think they will.
I'm a little. I mean, especially on Optimus, I think the probability of Tesla uh, putting Optimus on the back burner, just like it's done with Solar Roof
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
other products, is much higher than people realize.
I'm
I would say it's 50-50 at this point.
I'm not as convinced on that one. I do have to drop here, but I'm not as convinced on that one. We should talk about that another time, a little more in detail. I think, especially after we talk about the paper. I think that'll be illuminating to the speed of model development. And I think okay. I will put this out there. I'm very
But
bullish.
that still applies to competitors.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's not
does.
like
100%.
Tesla developed this AI research that we're going to talk about. Google
I agree.
developed it,
I agree.
and the Chinese can adopt it as well. And there are
Yes.
already Chinese
Yep.
humanoid makers that are in production. Tesla
I,
doesn't have even one designed ready for production.
yeah, I think the only competition Tesla has is in China. They have a lot of competition in China. So this is really an America versus China situation happening right now. So there's a lot of political things at play. And so I understand you're looking at it from a stock perspective. I agree. From a technological standpoint, I think they have a opportunity to go really fast here. I think the first shop to really draw in and attract mechanical engineers and people like that is going to be Tesla. It's the first time they have to a degree, a money printer that can fund another business so they can actually pay the salaries if they want to be competitive. This is Tesla's race to lose, right? Google has not produced hardware well. Apple has, but Apple hasn't really done that with new stuff at like in a lab in a very, very long time. So there is a big gap there in the United States companies, and there's a lot of talent in the United States, and the part of the world I would rather live in the United States than China. So whichever shop attracts those people first and retains them will be the leading winner, because then you end up having situations where you can just print papers and people come work for you because everybody wants to be on the winning team. I do have to go though, but yeah, I did want to say this one last thing. I am definitely a bull. I'm trying to adjust, but I realize I think just because of what I do, I need to always stay a little optimistic, because you have to be optimistic to take some crazy risks and tackle problems that seem hard. So that is just a lens I have on the world. I think you might have a pendulum view. Like you kind of swing from one direction to the other very wildly. And the good thing is, if you put
Well,
enough
I
drag
mean,
on it, if you put enough drag on it, you'll end in the right place, right?
2 years ago, I didn't know Elon was going to go nuts on
No,
80% of
totally
the
fair.
world.
No, neither
Like,
did
what do
I.
you want me to say
I,
about
I
that?
I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card.
Yeah. So, like, what the hell am I supposed to do?
No, fair,
So,
fair,
I mean,
fair.
did you read the Seeking Alpha article? That's my most popular article of all time. Did you read it?
I, I have not. I
Yeah.
really have not had
All right,
time.
you read that because I already read Titan article twice.
Okay, I'm gonna share a couple of YouTube videos that seem like they're good recaps of it as well. But if you've read that paper, I'm very excited to talk about it, as I'm sure you can tell. But
Yeah, I read
yeah,
everything except for the kind of like the mathematical equation stuff.
that's fine. I will cover just the important parts of it. I don't want to talk about the mathematical equations. I want to talk about the implications.
Okay, well, you read that Seeking Alpha article.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you for hosting. I'll be back.
All right. Talk to
I'll
you
talk
later.
to you another time. Sorry,
Bye.
not be back today, but I'll talk to you another time.
Okay. All right, let's see what else. Plans to buy armored Teslas vanish from State Department procurement list. State Department's procurement forecast removed the mention of Elon Musk Tesla in relation to a planned $400 million armored EV purchase after reports emerged about it on Wednesday. And then the other thing I didn't see from biased influencers is that 16 US Senate Republicans, this is also at the top of our screens, 16 US Senate Republicans on Wednesday proposed a pair of bills to kill the country's $7,500 EV tax credit and impose a new $1,000 tax on EVs to pay for road repairs. I've seen a couple of tweets about talking about the second part, but really what matters is that the first part. Because the fact is, without the $7,500 EV tax credit, the new EV tax credit, or the $4,000 used EV tax credit, which is also on chopping block according to this bill, or the ZEV credits, or the manufacturing credits from which Tesla benefited $1.3 billion in 2024, Tesla would have negative gross margin. This is just math. So it's hard to disagree with just math. And, just the overarching point is that there's a lot of misinformation out there on Tesla, BYD, Waymo, Baidu, and I try to share all the facts. On that note, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will chat with you all next time. Take care. Baidu, and that's